The strategy that I use in this Terran versus Terran matchup here, in this particular game, I'm not going with the typical Platinum League Terran versus Terran strategy, which is mass siege tanks, Vikings, Marines, and Expos. I'll probably show that one in the future just because it should be covered since it's such a common strategy, but I've been experimenting with this alternate strategy and it's been working out pretty well so far. It can, if you execute it very well and you're as good or better than the player you're playing against, you can pull off the win with this strategy, and it's a lot more fun and the game can be a lot shorter. So that's the whole point of this, is to try to avoid those siege take, Viking, and mass expo 45-minute games. So what I'm doing here is I built one Marine, and then I'm going a couple of Reapers to just get out there and harass my opponent. I actually didn't send a scouting SCV because I knew I was going to send a very early Reaper to harass my opponent, and that actually works as a pretty good scout. Not only does it, harass and distract your opponent, but you get to see all around his base a lot of times when you go and harass with 1 or 2 Reapers. I don't really advocate using them as a big force, trying to hit your opponent with 12 Reapers later, because for one thing, by then they'll have a lot of units that will counter the Reaper. So, but 1 or 2 Reapers, a lot of times, if you can micro it without slowing down your macro, it is a good thing. I'm using it. I'm not trying to win the game here, obviously, with 1 or 2 Reapers. I'm not even trying to do a lot of damage. What I'm trying to do is distract my opponent. Here comes another Reaper. Don't ever underestimate the value of harassing your opponent if you can do it without losing a lot of units, because you keep him thinking about what you're going to do to him next rather than what he's going to do to you next, and that's always a good thing. So right here I have 2 Reapers out. At this point I've hotkeyed them to separate groups, and I think I'm going to be cute here and send them both to opposite sides of the base. Well, it doesn't really work out that way, because little did I know my opponent was getting Helions, of all things. You very rarely see a lot of Helions, even this many, like 4 Helions in high level ladder play, but my opponent in this game, Osedic, actually used them pretty well. As you're going to see soon, he's pretty effective with them. So this by no means proves that Helions are not broken and that they don't need some sort of a buff to make them a more useful unit. But it does show that you can still sometimes catch your opponent off guard with them and make use of them. So he's taking a medevac with 4 Helions into the back of my base while he continues to tech to Starport, and I'm actually teching to Starport too. I have a Starport with a tech lab already up. He drops his Helions into the back of my base, and here's where he's pretty effective with them. He's killing quite a few SCVs and making me slowly respond with my Marauders and Marines to this attack. So far he's killed quite a bit. My Marines went straight for the dropship, the medevac, because I didn't want these guys escaping and continuing to harass me. I wanted them out. I wanted that medevac gone, and I wanted to kill all the Helions. So at least, even though he killed a bunch of my SCVs, at least he was taking some damage. So that's why I went after the medevac first with my Marines before going after the Helions. Right here I'm building a command center to do a pretty fast expo while I'm sending out my first Banshee. And I'm also partly done with researching Cloak, and I'm sending another Banshee as well. So you're starting to see my strategy unfold here, which is to harass with Reapers and then Banshees while I can build up a big force in my own base. But right now Osedic has his own pretty good sized force and is coming after me, which at this point I haven't massed my big force that I was just talking about. I'm still just in the kind of harassment mode, so I have enough units to defend decently, but my Banshee is over here killing Osedic's SCVs and generally screwing him up. the other Terran player wins this battle, at least initially he does, but my Banshee is there to fend off basically the rest of the units. There's not much he can do as long as I've got that Banshee there. I killed all his Marines earlier, so he's just going to continue to try to do as much damage as he can with these Marauders. Meanwhile, I'm in his base. By now I have Cloak. We missed a bit of the action, but if you're watching this in the replay with the MP3 download, you know, traditional audio style rather than YouTube, then you can go back and watch this again later. But Cloak is obviously very nice for if you're going to use your Banshees for harassment. Sometimes I don't bother to get Cloak if I'm going to use it, if I'm going to use my Banshees as my main fighting force, but getting Cloak for harassment is obviously great. And versus Terran, it's Cloaked Banshees, that's when they really shine, because you want to try to make them use scan as much as possible. Every time they use scan, that's one less mule that they can get, so that's about minus, what, like 270 minerals every time that you force a scan. So right there he had a turret finish right about the time that I was pulling out. I ran right into it and lost that Banshee, but generally what I try to do is I'll harass with the Banshee on the outside of the base, get him to scan, back the Banshee off, keep him cloaked, bring him back around when the scan is worn off, and continue harassing, which you'll see a little bit of here in a bit. I'm still sending out Banshees to cover for the expansion that I just put up. I fly my Banshee in a route that goes directly over his expo, because not only is this Banshee harassing, he's also scouting. That's another one of the strong points of this strategy that I'm using right here, with the multiple ways of harassing, you know, the Reapers and then the Banshees.